What's up, y'all? It's your girl Olivia Bird, and welcome to O's House. Thank you so much for joining us for our next episode, where the topic we will be discussing is marriage. Are you built for it? Speaking from experience of being a woman who is now in her second marriage, I feel as though I have a lot to give to the topic. So I wanted to make sure this topic was, backed by not only my opinions. I am an unlicensed, unprofessional, untrained, so this is strictly from my point of view of marriage and from my experiences, and just, giving my advice. But it's unsolicited, untrained advice, okay? But that's what we're going to be talking about today. And big shout out to our sponsors from the Muscle Music Group. Also, shout out to Bird's Eye View. Shout out to Cloudy Movement. Make sure y'all go visit cloudymovement.com. Put in your promo code OBIRD at checkout and get your 10% off. Also, shout out to Mr. C at High Times Network and CSA Network. Make sure that y'all are following us on all platforms. Also, when you're going to watch on Roku TV, just make sure you download the High Times Network app. And on Amazon Fire TV, you can download the CSA Network app. All right. Yeah. So, without further ado, let's get into this topic. Marriage. Are you built for it? Let's go. So because this is a major topic, it's like, oh Lord, where do you start? Where do you begin? I'll start with this is my second marriage. My first marriage was Lord, full of trauma, full of abuse, both verbally, physically. Also filled with a lot of lessons. I learned a lot about myself, about what I was willing to withstand. Put myself through a lot of heartbreak, trying to be a savior, thinking that I could be the only one to save him. Yes, it's me. I could save him. If only he could just give me a chance. I could turn his life around. I could do it. I know I can. So yeah, it was a lot of I was young. I wouldn't say I was impressionable, because the reality of it is that when I met him, I was 17 years old, but I was a couple months before turning 18, but I was, it was a different circumstance. I was living a different life. I was working and living by myself at some point. So yeah. I had to get into survival mode fairly early. And I think that me being in a bar at 17 years old exposed me to the predators, and exposed me, made people and men think because I was young, I had to be dumb. I had to be a fast, easy, because why in the world are you in this place at 17 years old. You got to be, you've got to be easy. But, little did they know. Little did they know. But I think, just starting off, meeting somebody who's 9 years older than you, you, despite the, how intelligent I was, I still was impressionable. And when it came to his regard, my ex-husband's regard, because it was also a lot of fear. After I got hit the first time, it was like, oh, okay. So, that fear and that hope of thinking that if I loved him enough, if I loved him hard enough, if I loved him like I wanted him to love me, it would work. It would turn around. I had hope, and hope is a hell of a drug. It's a hell of a drug. It's more powerful than any alcohol, any strain of weed. Hope. Hoping that someone will change and love you. Yeah. I never, I come from a divorced household. My mom and dad were divorced when I was about 10 or 11. With that divorce came moving to new states. Our family being separated. Parents having to, my dad was the step parent of my other brother and my two sisters. So, it's the dynamic of childhood that I grew up in, and not really seeing an example of a strong marriage. And just, not understanding, what happened and why it happened the way it did, and me thinking that my parents was going to be together forever. But I know at some point during their divorce and their separation, I was happy that I wouldn't say happy, but I was at peace with my mom and dad not being together no more, because they was miserable. They was miserable. They didn't, who wants to be listening to arguing and disagreements and beefing? Like, who wants to deal with that as a kid? Like, nobody want to deal with that shit. So I was like, fine, that's fine with me. But then, I had to see my mom's life go in one direction, see my dad's life go in another direction, and having to be around my dad being married to a new woman. That was a lot within itself. Went through a lot of shit with my dad and my stepmom. And I know that sometimes recently, as I've gotten older, I've said to my dad, like, I could have been nicer to my stepmom. I could have been nicer to her. could have been nicer. And saying that based off of, the struggles and the things that I've gone through, being a stepmom, and I think it's just crazy how life works, how cycles happen, and you go through the trajectory of your life really depends on the decisions that you make, even as a child and a young adult. Because, I'm a strong believer in karma. If you don't do what you got to do and obligate yourself to righting your wrongs, karma gonna come back and be like, hey, boo. But I'm also a believer that if you do right those wrongs, you ain't gonna you ain't gonna get that much of a, you gonna get a little slap in the butt. You still gonna get a little slap in the butt, but it ain't gonna be that, that major. If you really have the intention of trying to right your wrongs and make amends with the people that you wronged, doing that and opening the door for that good karma to come back to you, and to prevent you, from not getting a big slap on the butt. So, but I say all that to say, that I didn't treat my stepmom the best. I was a kid and, transitioning to, this new life with living with a woman who's not my mother. It was a lot. Being in a new state, going to a new school with people, and it took a lot for me to just be like, all right, let me just, give in. But I never fully gave in to, I never gave in to the life that I could have had if I would have just stopped worrying about my mom and trying to save her. So, and that's really the basis behind what I'm talking about, in bringing it back around. I have had a savior complex for a long time, and that same wanting to save my mom and wanting to save my mom, then that transitioning over to wanting to save my ex-husband. So I never did what I needed to do as far as healing and working through those issues I had, with my mom and them my mom and dad getting a divorce and how that affected me. And, my parents wasn't advocates of therapy. It really grew up in a household where it was like, just pray and God will fix it. That was my mom's answer, really, for things. Just pray and God will fix it. My dad's answer is, you ain't gonna get nothing if you don't work hard. You think something gonna fall out of the sky because you cute and you pretty, that you don't have to work? why do you want to depend on a man because you pretty? No, not no daughter of mine. My dad taught me how to be independent, and he also he told me how to be independent. He did the best that he could, raising a daughter that was that's strong-willed, and you just can't tell me anything. I don't care if you're my dad or not. What you got to tell me, it got to make sense. It all got to make sense. And that's how I always been. So, dealing with the traumas and the cycles of marriage that I've witnessed in my own family, not just in my immediate family, but, looking at different families on each side of my, different families on my mom's side, different families on my dad's side, looking at their dynamics of marriage, and, the only thing I knew is that marriage was a good thing. Like, despite all the things that I saw, the message that I got from it was marriage can be a very beautiful thing. I don't know how it's going to be or how to get there, but it could be a beautiful thing. So in my first marriage, I was going through not communicating with my family at the time. We were going through our own family things, regarding just a lot of decisions that were made. And so my structure and the home structure and family structure was already damaged when I met my ex-husband, and he used that to drive a bigger wedge between me and my family, and I allowed him to. I'm not going to say that, because, people are going to ask the question, like, what you mean? Like, can't nobody just come in and do that and make you decide what kind of relationship you going to have with your family? But I allowed him to, manipulate me. And now, don't get me wrong. Let me just also say that a lot of shit that he did talk to me about family, some of that shit was true. And some of that shit opened my eyes to a lot that was going on in my family. So his approach and the way that he used the dysfunction of my family in order to manipulate my mind and my heart. And I was devastated about my family not being close. Like, me and my family used to be close, yo. And that shit bothered me. And he knew it did. And that was one of the things he used in order to, seclude me from my family, and so that I wouldn't tell. And, he started being abusive. He started being abusive when I wasn't really dealing with my family like that. So, it made it easier for him to control me and to control the dynamics of me and my family getting a closer relationship or getting back to a better place. Like, we didn't have marriage counseling. I didn't even want to marry the nigga. If we're being honest, I didn't even want to marry that nigga. Like, I got myself in a jam. I gave this man an ultimatum, thinking that me giving him an ultimatum because of how he was going to make him leave me the fuck alone. I thought the ultimatum would scare him. And that shit backfired on me in a major way. And once it did, I felt trapped. And I felt like, oh, I'm never going to get out of here now. Like, I'm never going to get out of this situation now. So, you know, I got married the first time out of feeling like, shit, I'm stuck now. Like, I done got myself into a situation that I don't know how I'm going to get out of. And I don't see no way to get out of it. And that's the part that was crazy. I lost hope in, you know, the life that I thought I was going to have with him. Like, I lost hope in it. I remember the day we got married. And I just wanted one person to ask me, was I sure? I wanted one person to ask me if I was sure, or to ask me if I was ready, or don't worry about what y'all just heard in the background. I tripped. I'm clumsy, but anywho. Don't worry about that. Moving on. So I wanted one person to ask me if I was ready, if I was sure. Because I promise you, if one person, I don't care who it would have been, only would have been one person. It only would have took one person to say, are you ready? Are you sure you want to do this? And I would have been like, I don't want to do this, and I need you to help me get away from him. But it never happened. It never happened. And let me just say that it's not the fault of the people that were around, because I was one hell of an actor. Oh, I was good at pretending that we was good. I was good at it. I was great at it. I was great at pretending we was good. That everything was fine. And that all the decisions that was being made, I was cool with. And you know, I went along with a lot of shit. But nobody ever asked me if I was sure. I didn't have that moment, you know, those moments before you get married where, you know, like you see on the movies and TV, where it's like, you know, you're surrounded by all of your people and they're helping you put your dress on and you're getting your makeup done and you know, you're drinking mimosas and you're just having a good time. Like, no, that was not my experience. That was not my experience on my wedding day. Mostly everybody was downstairs getting breakfast, and I was upstairs in the hotel room getting dressed, putting on my makeup. Like, I did my own hair. Like, he wasn't, y'all. I wasn't allowed to wear weave. I wasn't allowed to, you know, express myself how I went. I wasn't even allowed to show my feet, y'all. At one point. At one point, I wasn't even allowed to show my motherfucking toes. It's hot as shit. And I can't show my toes? You tripping. You tripping. You tripping. And it's not for any religious reasons. It's not for any religious reasons. This man said to me one day, you need to put, I'm in the house. We're in the house. He's having company about to come over. This man tells me I need to go put something on my feet. I go upstairs to go put some socks on. He said, no, put some shoes on. I said, there's something on my feet though. Like, I have socks on. Yo, you're not sitting around, you're not walking around here without nothing on your feet. Like, I don't need nobody looking at your feet. I'm like, what? I am in my house, in the comfort of my own home. And why are you bringing niggas in here that's going to be worrying about looking at my feet? Like, you tripping. Because you're a creep. That's really what's going on. You're trying to protect me from the niggas that's like you. Huh. Honey. But anywho, so we got married. The moment I stepped on the beach and I saw the water, I immediately started crying. I didn't have my sisters there. My mom wasn't there. My dad wasn't there. My brothers wasn't there. I only had one cousin that was there. That was my cousin that was living in Miami at the time. I didn't have anyone there. And, it was just the worst decision of my life. One of the worst decisions of my life. One of the worst decisions of my life. So, my first marriage wasn't built on love. It wasn't built on protection. It wasn't built on communication, effective communication. It wasn't built on loyalty. It wasn't built on, doing what you got to do to be there for your partner. It wasn't built on partnership. It was built on power, control, fear, hope. It wasn't built on anything good. And it wasn't long after my first wedding that it took for... It was literally 30 minutes after my wedding ceremony that I realized I made one of the biggest mistakes of my life. It only took 30 minutes. It only took 30 minutes to be embarrassed, humiliated. The moment that the Facebook status changed to married, I was then humiliated, embarrassed, betrayed, and I should have ran. I should have ran. So, I understand when people say, when you get to a certain age, it's your responsibility to figure out the things that you weren't taught, or to figure out the things that you didn't know when you get to a certain age. And I agree with that to an extent, but I really believe that that's on a case-by-case basis. Like, the statistics would have shown that I was not supposed to be with the man that I married the first time. I grew up with a dad. My dad has always been a part of my life. He's always been active. He's always been a provider. He's always been a protector. He always made the best decisions. So, statistically, growing up in a 2-parent household, having an active father around, statistically, the man I married was strictly against the green. And I remember when me and my dad had a conversation. I believe it was the day that I decided to get a divorce. My dad, he called me. We had a little, daddy daughter day. He could tell that I was like heavy and I was burdened. He didn't know what was wrong. He could see that I was troubled. He could see it, he could feel it. He never liked my ex-husband at all. Never liked that nigga. Didn't talk to him. Didn't speak to that nigga or nothing. Like, he never liked that nigga. And I remember that day when I was with him and I was spending the day with him, he told me that he thought I married my ex-husband out of spite. Like, that I married him because he didn't like him. And I'm like, what? I said, sir, you have no idea. It had nothing to do with you. It had nothing to do with anyone. I married him because of my own dumb shit. And because of my own issues that had nothing to do with him, with my dad. And even before we got married, like, my ex-husband never talked to my dad and tried to, like, he never, my dad is old school, like, come ask me. Come have a conversation with me out of respect if you want to marry my daughter. I need to know what's the benefit for her. Because the one thing my dad has always been is a provider, honey. So what you gonna do for my daughter that I can't do for her? My dad took us out to eat at restaurants every week. We was at Red Lobster and Outback Steakhouse, and my dad laid those foundations so that I wouldn't be impressed when somebody took me to a nice restaurant. Because, okay, my dad took me here. You ain't showing me nothing. I already did that. Step it up, boo. So, my dad don't listen. If my dad don't, I am a lot like my dad when it comes to how I deal with people and my directness and my bluntness. Like, I get a lot of that from my dad. Where if I don't like you and I don't fuck with you, I'm not talking to you, and that's it. And I don't give a damn. And that's what it is. That's what it is. I don't fuck with you. I'm not speak to you for what? What would I say? What would I speak to you for? So, my dad, it just, everything about my relationship with my ex, it was just not good. Like, all the signs were there to say, girl, if you don't get out of here, like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? All the signs was there. But I didn't see none of that. Not while I was in it. I didn't see it. All I could see was I needed to save. I was the one that could save this marriage. I'm the one that could save this man. I'm the one that could, I'm built for this. Like, I'm built to withstand this. I'm not going to break. I can handle it. And that's really what I thought. I can handle it. I can handle it. It's cool. But I learned a lot about life from my first marriage. And crazy thing about it is, I've learned so much more from my second marriage. Because it was built on a different foundation. My second marriage was built on a different foundation. And so if you think about me being in my first marriage, I'm working 2 jobs. Majority of the time I'm married. I'm working 2 jobs. I've getting, and I mean good jobs. Like good jobs. And I had to work 2 jobs. I wasn't working 2 jobs because that's what I wanted to do. I had to work 2 jobs because I was married to someone who I couldn't depend on. I don't know if you're going to go to work today and you're going to quit today because somebody said something to you ain't like. I can't depend on you. And the shit that I've been through in my life, I'll be damned. I'm not going to be homeless because of you. Or nobody, for that matter. So, I work 2 jobs all the time. Pretty much all my life. And I've never been in a situation I've never been in a bad situation that was because of me. If that makes sense. I think I'm going to have to break that down. Because I feel like I just felt like a lot of, huh? Yeah, I spent half of my life, working not for me, but for other people. So, it's just been, that's just how my life has gone. In the past. So, fast forward to I spent 10 years surviving. I spent from the time I was 17 years old until even after I had my daughter. So from 17 years old until my 30s, I stayed in survival mode. I was in survival mode that whole time. That whole time. Now, nobody couldn't tell me that once I was done with my first marriage and I was away from him, that I wasn't going to be fine. When I say I thought that I was going to be fine. I thought that my life was going to be great after that. I wasn't going to have no issues, no more, with no, like, I was going to be cool. Man. Man. Nobody warned me, yo. Nobody warned me that traumas and triggers. Oh, nobody warned me about them triggers, yo. I never had a chance to heal from my first marriage. I literally left him, spent a couple of months by myself, living by myself, like I was wilding a little bit, but it's like it's kind of like I went back to being who I remembered and who I was before I met him. But the problem was who I was when I met him, I was still a little girl. I was a young woman that was surviving, and I was that's how my life was. I was living based on surviving. So a lot of the decisions I made weren't good decisions because they were the decisions that I felt I had to make in order to get to the next day or get to the next month. So when I got that freedom, when I got my freedom, that's all I could see. That's all I could see. It was that I was free and I was able to do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted to do it. So when I met my current husband, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for him. And even though I wasn't ready for him emotionally, that didn't stop us from, like, I couldn't shake him. I couldn't shake him, yo. And I was honest with him about the fact that I was still married. I told him about what happened. I explained to him the situation. Because it was only right for me to be honest, so that he could have the opportunity to decide if he wanted to, deal with me or not. He's a man who has children. He ain't never been married before, and I don't know at the time. I didn't know at the time what his experience was as far as what kind of women he dealt with. But despite me not being ready, but still being drawn to him, and I just couldn't let him go. And then the shock of me getting pregnant was like extremely shocking and surprising. I've been told that, I was diagnosed with PCOS. I was told that, the chances of me having a baby was like slim to none as far as naturally. But I still had a chance. But, I wasn't worried. I damn sure wasn't worried about having no kids with that nigga. Absolutely not. But, so leaving my ex-husband, after all that shit, meeting my new husband, having a baby for the first time, never, like, that's a whole nother situation. Like, having a baby, then us getting married. It was a lot of movement. Not enough stillness. But with this marriage, we did things differently. We went to premarital counseling. We've always been very honest with each other. And having to learn each other over these past 9 years has been, we've both learned about ourselves. I'm not the same woman I was when I met him. I don't have the same mindset I had when I met him. I'm a mother now. I wasn't when I met him. So I'm a different woman in this marriage. And the one thing that we was just talking about the other day, and from that conversation, I was just smoking and thinking, and I was like, I had to accept that I wasn't the woman that he needed for his life. I was an asset. I brought value to his life. I was a good woman. I mean, I did a lot of good things. For that marriage, I was molded for the creative side of him. And no matter how much love I gave, I still had a toxic side to me. Because let me just say and put it on the floor that my mouth has always been crazy. My mouth has always been crazy. And I know for a fact that back then, I said a lot of shit. But my mouth ain't never been crazy unprovoked. Let me just also say that. I don't set out to be disrespectful with my mouth. But if you provoke me, I'm going to answer and respond. So, a lot of the physical altercations that we had was because of my mouth and me being, you know, him not being built for what I like. If you're going to insult me, I'm going to insult you back. If you're going to say things that are going to hurt my feelings, you best believe I'm going to say things that are going to hurt your feelings. And what I got to say is going to make you so mad that it's going to hurt you so bad and make you feel so less than a man that you're going to put your hands on me. Because that's the only response that you can give. You felt like I hit you with my mouth. Now, I'm not condoning a man hitting a woman. I'm not condoning anybody putting their hands on anybody, because it's just words. And you're going to have to learn how to like, control yourself. You can't smack somebody in the mouth because they said something you ain't like. So what? You don't have to be around them. So I'm not condoning my ex putting his hands on me. I know that I hit with my mouth. And knowing that, and having to accept in my new marriage early on that I was verbally abusive. Do you know how hard that shit was to accept? I was devastated with that truth. Devastated. So it forced me to deal with it and work on it and fix it and change it. Am I perfect? No. But I'm very, very conscious about the positions that I even put myself in to even have to for my mouth to even get crazy with anyone. Not just my husband, but with anyone. But, you know, it's certain things, and I have a level of respect for my husband that I'm not going to, you know, it's just certain things I'm just not going to say. And it's just, and he's not, you know, but I don't have to get that way. I don't have to get that way. He doesn't trigger that, you know, those things in me. But it's not his responsibility to tiptoe around my triggers. That's not his responsibility. It's my responsibility to, you know, do the work, find the resources that I need to make sure that when I feel triggered, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do to work through it. Breathing, doing my pressure points, doing my touching on my fingers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like, I gotta go through my steps.
So, I really didn't pay much attention to, initially, I didn't pay much attention to my husband's own personal trauma, like the he had business. And I couldn't because I was completely consumed with my own shit. Did that change, him seeing who I really was and knowing that I was capable of changing that part of me? For him to believe in me and to love me through it, it's beautiful, and that is how I got softened. Because and I'm sure a lot of women can attest to this, that have gone through similar experiences. When you have gone through years of self doubt, not thinking that anything that you do is good enough. There's no possible way that if I show this very raw part of me, that this is not going to run this man out of here. So to have him be to love me through it's a blessing. It's a blessing. So I'm always gonna talk about the things I've done wrong. I'm always going to look at what I could have done differently. I'm always going to accept my role and responsibility of and accountability or something if I have done something. I've always been that way since I was a kid and a young adult. That the experiences that I have gone through in my life have made me want to be honest and truthful and want to give other people the opportunity to have their voice heard and to speak what they need to speak. I'm never going to silence nobody. I'm never going to stop nobody from talking to me. And I'm not, in that, with that, it makes me not afraid to have difficult conversations. I'm not afraid of difficult conversations. I'm not afraid that those conversations get a little escalated as far as tone, volume. Like I'm not afraid of it because I'm not. I gotta control me, and I honestly believe that positive energy will trump negative energy all day long. So that's just how I feel about it. So I encourage I encourage everyone to really think about what you're stepping into, being married. You can love somebody all you want. Love is not enough. It's not enough. You gotta have more than love. You have to have the willingness to be a partner and to be like, I'm not gonna leave my partner in the situation. Like I'm gonna have my partner's back. We're gonna figure it out. We're gonna work through it. We're gonna communicate. We're gonna get through it together. We're gonna figure it out. And I can't change anything that happened to me or that I've lived through. I can't change it. Um, I can only work on the things that I feel like are that need improvement and that the people in my life that love and care for me can hold me accountable to and say, hey, if they give me feedback, if they talk to me and let me know that there's something that I'm doing that bothering them, rub them the wrong way, hurt them in some way, I always leave that door open for people to come and talk to me. Whether they are comfortable enough to, or whether they are, some people are not used to it. Some people don't know how to, tell people how they feel, and I understand that. So, we all walk into marriage wanting it to be for a lifetime, and we take those vows and we say those vows, and we want those vows to remain true forever. And it's possible for them to last forever, but they only gonna last if you do the work. Gotta do the work. There's no room to be selfish when it comes to things that are, when it comes to how you're going to raise your children, where you're going to live, the environment you want to live in, whether you have children or not. It's important to talk about goals and the future and things, money and how people view finances, and if they know how to budget and do they understand how to manage bills and do they know how to work a phone? Like, like it's just things like that. Like love is not enough. Like we gotta be practical. We gotta be logical. We gotta understand each other and where each other is trying to go. We gotta understand how to navigate through life changes. Each person is gonna go through different life changes. You gotta go through people losing people and grieving and health and like those are the kind of things that you gotta talk about as a partnership. Like I know you want to eat this and this and that, but it ain't good for you. I know you want to you do the same thing with your kids. You're not gonna let your kids eat this and this and that. And that's not to say you're trying to be your husband or your wife's parent, but it's about caring for your partner. Like you know that you ain't going. I know it will make you happy to do this. I know it will make you happy to go out and do this or to eat this thing or to entertain that. But how is that helpful for you as an individual and how is it helpful for us as a partnership? How is it helpful for our family? And that's the stuff you got to think about when you get married. How is it helpful for your family? You can't do the things you do when you was single. You can't make decisions by yourself, and that's just the way it goes. That's just the way it goes. So, I hope that this episode has you know, helped and was helpful. I hope that it was a lot of things that you could relate to. I encourage anybody who is in a domestic violence situation or that knows someone in a domestic violence situation to go get your freedom and by any means. Uh, I'm a strong advocate in allowing people to live the lives that they want to live as long as they're not bringing harm to themselves or bringing harm to other people. You are able to live your life without bringing harm to yourself or harm to other people. So I encourage everybody to love themselves, to pour into yourself the things that make you feel good, so that you can take those things that make you feel good and give out good energy and good vibes. So that's the episode. I feel like there's so many things I wanted to cover, but there's always an opportunity for a part two. I would love to hear more people's perspectives and feedback on the topic. So please feel free to drop a comment, send me a DM, email, and we can continue the conversation. And I feel that way about any topic that I bring on here. We can always continue the conversation. So I thank y'all for your support. I thank y'all for listening. I thank y'all for always tuning in and showing love. And make sure that y'all look forward to more episodes dropping, more interviews from different artists and musicians and DJs and what is on listening to. Look forward to a couple of episodes dropping for what is on reading, where we highlight dope black authors. Also, make sure that y'all are, following your dreams, but also being responsible. Okay. And that's all here at Welcome to Old House. And I'll see y'all next time. Bye.